Shalom, welcome back. Now we're going to be doing lesson number 10. Here we're going to be starting by reading the sentence, Vayavo, and he came, El unto Avi, his father, Vayomer, and he said, Avi, my father, Vayomer, and he said, Hineni, here I am. I want you to understand something real important here, because this is a really good point to show you how translation can get you tricked up at times when you're looking at a subject, and that there are possible ways by which you could translate something in a unique way that may not make sense to you when you finished it, but it has some kind of sense to it by which what you're translating. Okay, and let me tell you how you do this. Okay, if I was to say Vayavo el Avi, and he came into his father, and I said Vayomer, and he said Avi, and I said, well, Avi, and you think Avi is the subject of the sentence of Vayomer, you could easily translate it Vayavo el Avi, and he came into his father, Vayomer Avi, and my father said, Vayomer, and he said, Hineni, here I am. Now this might be the part where you say, this doesn't make sense here, right? But I want you to see the logic and the fact that how you can have a noun here be misconstrued with the verb as possibly being the subject of the actual verb. We're here, Vayomer, and Avi. Vayomer is the verb, and the subject is connected to what was spoken of here in this person. The word Avi is just a statement. So he's actually quoting this actual statement here. And this is the part where you find that when you're reading, you have to interpret a lot, because you're not there to hear the conversation. You're not there to understand directly what exactly was being said. Only after you investigate can you interpret the things that are being said here. And that's why I want you to point that out, so you can understand the difficulty, but at the same time the joy of looking at a sentence in two different dynamic ways. So let's look at here, Vayavo, alright? Vayavo. If I'm looking at Vayavo here, remember the rules that we have learned with how to find a root. Number one, we first identify, is this a Vav conversive or not? Here it is. This one's a Vav conversive. So I'm going to label that. Number two, I know where the pronoun is. Once I know I have a Vav conversive, because all Vav conversive, the pronouns are going to be in the front, because Vav conversives are only used with future tense verbs. Alright? Next we have is Bet and Aleph, our two root letters. Here we have the game of how to find the root. Right? So here we learned we can put a nun, Bet, Aleph, we can put a Yud, Bet, Aleph, we could put Bet, Vav, Aleph, we could put Bet, Yud, Aleph, we could put Bet, Aleph, Aleph, so we're doubling the last root letter, or we could put Bet, Aleph, Hey, alright? And these are the 6 possibilities by which I could be trying to find or locate the root, the missing root, right? Another indication is here, the kamatz. If you see a kamatz under the pronoun and you have only 2 root letters, you're going to be looking for a root that has a vav that's missing in the middle. And that's what we have to understand with relationship to this very issue. But nonetheless, the other circumstances can be found by going through those 6 steps to find the missing root. And all you have to do is spend some time in the dictionary looking up these roots and asking which one makes more sense. Okay? Here we have the preposition, which means to. Remember, I taught you earlier about the fact of the issue, and if I may not touch in these lessons, you can look at the lesson of the issue of what's the difference between the hey directive and the L preposition. Here we have to remember the hey directive and L preposition are used with verbs of movement, okay? And the hey directive functions with only the verbs of movement and does not function with verbs of speech. And the L preposition, it does both the jobs of the hey directive as well as the L preposition with verbs of speech, whereas here in verbs of movement, the separation between the hey directive or the L preposition is going to depend upon the issue of writing it as in to or toward. Why do we need to know this? Because when we're dealing with the issue of to means what? It wants to signify the goal of the subject that's being said. Whereas the hey directive wants to tell us about the process of the actual subject. So here we're saying, Vayavo, and he came El unto Avi. Avi, so Avi we have to now look at and break apart. So here we have the word Av, and we have the addition of the Yud, which is added for grammatical purposes, but it has no function other than it needs to be there. And then we have the Vav, and of course the Hirik, which is the word Av, father, Avi, his father. So, Vayavo, and he came, El, unto, or to, Avi, his father, Vayomer. What's Vayomer? We have to take this is the Vav, conversive. We know that the Yud is the pronoun to the verb, since this is always going to be used for future tense. So what's left is Amer, and so we have now, and he said. So here we have the word, and he said. So Vayavo El Avi, and he came to his father, Vayomer, and he said, what? This is what's called, what kind of a sentence? Well, it's a special sentence, because what's going on here is now the actual narrative is taking place. Here you have the Vav narrative, and now you have the actual narrative of what he actually said being spoken of here, which is the word Avi, which is my father. Why is Avi my father? Well, Avi is basically Av, which is the word father, and the Yud, which is the pronoun for my, with the Hirik underneath the bet. So Avi is my father. Okay, so we have a pronoun ending attached to nouns. Remember this, there's only a few things that you need to understand about nouns. Very simple. Not very difficult, very simple. Okay? Nouns can only have a few things. A preposition that's inseparable attached to it, a pronoun ending, which makes it possessive attached to it, or the definite article that is attached to it. Okay? Those are the three things that you need to memorize and just know in your head. Whenever you're looking for a noun, always look for these three main things. Is it a preposition that's attached? Is it the definite article that's attached? Or is it the pronoun ending that's attached? And so when you find the pronoun ending, you know that you're talking about a definite object. Okay? So he said, my father, Vayomer. We repeat the translation down here because we already know that this is the same as this word here. And he said, and of course lastly, we have the last narrative statement that he's speaking here. Here we have the word hineni. Hineni is basically two words that are used together. They're literally collided into each other. Alright? First we have the word hine, and we have the pronoun ni. Ni means I. Okay? That's the I, which would be me. Okay? So in this case, you have hine, which this thing literally means behold or hear. Okay, literally you could literally translate this as here. And then ni is I am. Okay, so this is a copula, in a sense, verb that we'd have to attach to this actual statement here, because we don't have verb of existence. Okay, so hineni means literally here I am. Okay, here I am. So remember, the word am doesn't exist in Hebrew. So if you want to help yourself, put this in brackets to tell you that this is not a word that exists in the actual Hebrew, but it's required for the grammatical aspects of it to make sense because of the grammar of what is understood. That literally, the I am or he is or any kind of verb of existence that we would be utilizing, it's always understood that it exists and it is true. And that being said, we understand the fact that if I'm ever going to ever add that actual statement that I am, or something or he is in that statement or form, I know that if I put the am or is in brackets, I'm able to remind myself that this is something that is grammatically understood, although even though there's no grammatical wording that's used, this is the concept by which this is referring to. So some of the things that we need to remember when we're looking, for example, at lesson 10 is we need to understand the fact of how to identify our verb forms. Your verb chart is probably one of the most important charts you have to really overcome and get really well familiar with. You need to know the past tense forms, you need to know the future tense forms. You need to know the pronouns that are used with these forms and where they're located. You need to really understand these things because as you progress through the lesson, you're going to be required in this lesson to understand when something is past or when something is future. When something is past, we know that this has an affixed form. And affixed means it's something that's added to the end of a word. When something is future, we know that this is the prefix form because something is added to the front of the word. And that here would be adding the pronoun to the front of the verb. And therefore, it would follow in line with the importance of these very things. So you can see as you go along with the sentences that you have in lesson 10, as you utilize this book, that you can literally start pulling apart real quickly the different things by which we've already undergone. You can see the fact of what are the past tense verbs, which are the future tense verbs. You can identify the prepositions with pronouns. You can define which are the nouns, which are the subject of a verb, a definite direct object of a verb. And these things you really want to know. You really want to memorize this, okay? When you're translating, you want to know for certain direct object, definite direct object marker. This is the object of the sentence. This is the subject of the sentence. This is the preposition, and this is the prepositional phrase. Because this is going to tell you what important elements of these different parts of these sentences that you're translating is focusing upon what part. What part is being emphasized in these different sentences so that you can understand and already know grammatically where you're looking at with relation to these actual sentences. Hope you enjoy this video. We'll see you next time as we go to lesson number 11 here about learning Biblical Hebrew.